Hey JC, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're both from Arizona. You might be the first guest from Arizona. I'm probably wrong on that, but it's always nice to have a fellow Zony on there.
That's right.
But
We found out that in common really quick when we started talking about high schools.
yeah, go Suns. To get started though, tell me a little bit about like what got you into design and your journey to where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not like a traditional, I don't have a traditional design background. I didn't go to school for design. I didn't go to some fancy art school. Yeah, I started learning design on YouTube, honestly, like over a decade ago. Was I think if you remember some of those old school guys, like, well, I shouldn't say old school now, but maybe like the Joe Natolis of the world, Joe Natoli, a lot.
Yeah, he's been on the show.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, has he? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Natoli, a big inspiration of mine early in my career, still is. Yeah, Massimo Vignelli, not a YouTube guy, I think, but all the subway system design work in New York he did is like really big inspiration for me. So, a lot of hands-on learning. So I started out as a front-end developer, actually. Started coding up websites for friends and, was not doing a great job. So I was like, I need to find someone to take me under their wing, which shout out to Ali. He took me on. I put an ad. I think it was like LinkedIn or might have been Craigslist at the time. Hey, I'll work for free if someone teaches me how to do some design and development. And the rest is kind of history from there. I worked with another designer, and I gravitated more naturally, I would say, towards the process of design. And I really just enjoyed it from the design thinking process, really digging into like the crux of the user issues and problems, and aligning that with the business. I really have a business mindset when it comes to you know design problems, and so I think naturally for me that was fun, but all the while trying to maintain my development skills along the way. So that's
Yeah, and
about it.
I a lot there that I think like because we're going to talk about AI. I think you're probably just from people I've talked to, like top 1% AI designer, just my intuition on that, just kind of the things we were talking about. But also something you said there is it sounds like you reached out to someone who became a mentor, which is always my advice for new designers. Like reach out to these people that you're following and like they'll talk to you, right? Like people love chatting, right? So, but let's switch to AI because I know like I was definitely impressed with some of the businesses you're starting, and I would love to learn how should UXers be using AI? How should they be thinking about it in their daily workflow? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, with the advent of AI and agentic AI, we're seeing all that, right? The new buzzword like vibe coding and all that stuff. I think it's really important. And here's the thing, right? I think there's a place for AI. Where it is now, I think that someone like me can build a business in a couple weeks or even a weekend with
Yeah.
the tools that we have at our disposal now. So it's really, I think, not just from like we talked about before, the person that wants to create a startup by themselves, but also in the enterprise, right? Like how are designers using these tools in the enterprise? How can they benefit their how can AI benefit their workflows today within if they're pitching a new idea to a stakeholder, or if that designer's like, hey, I want to start a side project and start a business. So there's so many different avenues that you can go down
Yeah.
with these tools. So, but I think it is like, picking the right tools for the job is one of the most important things. Yeah.
Agreed. Let's talk about both those scenarios. T Tell me about like starting your own business and what's kind of the process by using AI. How has that gotten faster?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think some of the best problems and the best products come from people that either one experience the problem themselves or are just excited about a space, right? Like,
Yeah.
I love golf, for example. Like, I'm a big. We talked about this, Alex, right? We love golf. We grew up in the mecca of golf out here in
Yeah.
Arizona, especially in the wintertime. One of the biggest golf tournaments of the year is played here, Waste Management, the Phoenix Open. And I was like, you know what? What if I use Claude's Agent SDK to build the world's best or first agentic golf analyst? And so I did some back and forth with ChatGPT. I really love ChatGPT for those long reasoning and long context windows to help me brainstorm. And then once I feel like I have a good grasp of that, I'll take that into Claude Desktop where I can expand on that a little bit from a more technical perspective. And then from there, it's kind of off to the races, right? It's like, hey, let me actually like see if I can distill this down into like a technical document, use that technical document in Cursor, have Claude Code fired up, referencing that technical document, and then it's kind of off to the races from how you want to deploy it to the agents you want to add within there to help you construct or call these tools, these MCP servers that will help you build out your product. And then you go into, I use Railway for some recent deployments and stuff like that. So you can actually deploy the agent or the system, depending if you're deploying a backend or you're deploying a front end through Vercel. I was definitely intimidated by these tools at first, but
Yeah.
once I started using them, I found out that it's really, it's trial and error, right? It's like figure out what works. Of course, things are going to break, but um, that's what it is, right? It can be intimidating, especially from a designer, right? Coming from a design perspective, this
Yeah.
design world where you don't have that many technical skills outside of Figma per se. So I definitely see there being a little bit of intimidation factor there. But once you get over that hump, it's really not as difficult as you think.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine your front end skills like help there, right?
Yeah, they do help. I mean, I would say it doesn't go beyond much like writing for loops in JavaScript, right? Like it doesn't go beyond that much. I
Hmm.
would say, as long as like you're able to orchestrate the tools, I would say that's primarily and kind of know what's happening, right? Like you don't just like fire off Cloud Code and like go make a sandwich and a cup of coffee and come back, half an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe some people do, right? But it's important to watch those things. And Cloud Code, I think I don't love the name, right? And what I mean by that is like there's so much more to Cloud Code, the actual agent, than just coding. Like if I
Yeah.
ask Cloud Code to, hey, walk me through this in layman's terms, like what you're doing step by step as you go through this, it'll do that for me, right? Because you can kind of see it as like a learning experience too,
Yeah.
which is really important if you're, first time using it, getting things set up. So
And so are you skipping Figma then in this process?
yeah, good question. Yes, I don't use Figma at all, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't used Figma at all. I really do like the prototyping with Cloud Code, running things locally, pulling up the console and like iterating there. To me, that just seems really quick. I even like to deploy stuff to Netlify. If people or the listeners out there are familiar with Netlify, you can deploy stuff for free. It'll create a link for you, and you can do a live demo that way with your link. But yeah, no, I'm not using Figma at all. Sometimes what I'll do if Cloud Code struggles a bit, I'll design like a little feature in Figma. I'll screenshot it and then just paste it into my uh,
Okay.
terminal to give it a reference.
And so this is where I'm wondering if it breaks down for enterprise because I think like you think about Jacob's law and like in B2C, all websites have been figured out, right? Like let's make it very quick to purchase something or very quick to download the app or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And then I think in SaaS there's so much nuance and so many different users and so many different personas that I don't know if the AI has as much context or like other things to pull from. So would you still have the same advice for like an enterprise designer at a Fortune 500, like skip Figma, or like how would you advise them to do it differently?
Yeah, I've used Figma Make a little bit. I haven't
Yeah.
used it extensively like I've used these other tools like Cloud Code and Cloud Desktop, but I will say that, where I think it ties into the enterprise at least really well right now, I would say with Figma Make, you can use and start to build out and help your developer counterparts building out these components using Figma Make that will actually use your design system. Right. So there's a lot of leverage there that you can gain on, your team and your organization for yourself when it comes to helping your developer counterparts create those components when their bandwidth is limited, right? So there's definitely there. I know one thing we ran into in the past is the design to development parity, right? Like getting that parity between design and code. And I think there's a bridge there that the Figma MCP server can really help with.
Yeah.
So if designers can get familiar with that MCP server in Figma, they can help close that gap so that parity becomes better and better over time. So I do think there's a space for it. Now, when it comes to agentic UI and having these agents call tools from the command line, it can get there can be security risks there as well, right? If the agent's calling things
Yeah.
that are nefarious or there's malicious actors out there that that want to inject some things, you got to be careful there when it comes to security. So I know that at Palo Alto we were evaluating those tools just to make sure that those things were secure. So um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I think the security point is a huge one. Like I'll ask a lot of, product people I come across or designers, like what can you even use at work? And they're like Copilot, it sucks. Sometimes they're like Gemini, which, is getting better. Like they're destroying ChatGPT as of
sure,
now,
sure.
which is great. But I think that is the problem. Like, can they even use a lovable or whatever it is? But I think that's where I'm bullish on Make. I think Figma, when they IPO'd, said they were just gonna acquire a bunch of companies, and I think they're gonna invest a ton in that tool.
Mhm.
And then I think it also one of the problems I have from just a usability perspective about design, I'd love to see your prompts, is what I'm getting at. And like some of the prompts I've seen to get something quality is like 8 pages, right? And like
Hmm.
that to me isn't intuitive for the mass market, like to talk to a machine and know how that machine works. Like I think there's a lot of room for the UX of AI to improve, and I think Figma will figure that out if anyone does, right? What do you think about that though? Like I feel like maybe it's intuitive to you, but I just don't feel like for everyone it is to get the most out of these tools. Like,
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, right? Like I call it LLM ping pong, where you're kind of
yeah,
like, you're bouncing prompts back and forth between ChatGPT and Claude and between Claude and Claude Code. But I do find that if I get these, and by the way, there's your $1 million idea to the users out there. How can we solve the LLM ping pong problem? But I will say that like using Claude Desktop to create a prompt for Claude Code, it does it better than I would. And because it knows, like, and I instruct it, hey, yeah, I need you to create a prompt for Claude Code, something that Claude Code would understand. It includes code snippets and things like that. Um, and so I find that to me is very valuable. Now, when it comes to like changing little minor things, I find that, yeah, you have to be very specific. And if you're familiar with inspect mode on Google Chrome, you're running it locally, you can grab things, screenshots, and screenshot the console, and that kind of helps. But yes, you're right. Like when it comes to massive long and again, to your point, it eats up a lot of context, right? Like if I drop in this huge like 4 paragraph prompt, and try to one shot something, it's probably more than likely not going to get it right. You're feeding it too much context and you're eating up a lot of tokens doing that. So
it's iterative, just like design. Like
totally.
you're iterating through prompts, but I would just argue that that's not as intuitive as like doing that in Figma, where it's, you've learned the system, but it could get there.
You bring up a good point, right? I think like to your point about the design process, it's almost like you're doing the design, you're iterating through the design thinking process through your prompting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I live on LinkedIn, unfortunately, and every day it's like design's dead, AI's killed design, AI's killed dev, AI's killed product. Which of those, if any, do you think are true? And maybe that's zooming out in 5 years. Like, do you think coding is fully, is it fully automated now, or like, what do you think about those hot takes?
It's hard, right? Because you look at, models like Nano Banana, right, for example, from
Yeah,
from Google, and the output of what we're seeing now from an image generation perspective is like increased tenfold in the last like year, right? I mean, if you first remember like Dolly coming out and seeing like it couldn't even like do hands correctly or words correctly, and now with Nano
yeah,
Banana it just like kills it one shot, right? And then you have VO3 that does videos and
and
amazing stuff with,
Zora, yeah,
yeah, so sure, yeah. So like amazing stuff, right? I mean, I remember 2 years ago when ChatGPT first came out, and I was like, I was having to copy code from ChatGPT and paste it into my code editor, and everything would break, right? But we're not there anymore. We're at the Claude Code era and the VO3 era, and I think as fast as things are changing, to not take too long to answer your question, I think like we're seeing disruption in all of these verticals right now, right? When it comes to engineering with Claude Code, or design with VO3, or even, video production stuff with VO3, like I said. Um, it's changing, and I still think it requires this human intuition
yeah,
right now, but like in a year, I don't know what that looks like, right?
yeah,
I think the real acceleration is going to be designers and developers and leaders orchestrating these tools together, for a really good, strong output. And that's where I see like the market consolidation coming in, is like, it's going to be these people that can actually use, how can they deploy products? How can they build products? How can they design products? And like, is it one person? Is it a team of people? I am, leaning towards it being one person or a team of a few people that are doing all those things together. And
yeah,
so I do think that we'll see a downsizing of teams, but I think the most valuable people will be those folks that really ramp up on these things and start to figure out how to use them. Because it's not a matter of like if, it's when. And I think we're living in the when right now.
yeah, yeah. Fair point. So with that in mind, what advice do you have for new designers that are like, I want to get into UX, trying to break in?
Yeah, I would reach out to me. I would love to talk to you and help ramp you up. I mean, um, getting familiar, I would say, with with not just the front end, right? Like I think I've seen a lot of designers on LinkedIn think, using tools like Lovable, which I think is great, but I think it's, those tools only get you so far, right? I
Yeah.
think really understanding how to, like, for example, like commit code to GitHub, like commit code to a GitHub repository, learn how to like pull that code down into your, cursor instance, learn how to like install Claude Code, install an MCP server, like doing those things and running through the reps of that. It's a little, like I said earlier, it's a little intimidating at first, but I think it's really going to benefit you, not just in your job as a designer now, but in the future when you want to start shipping your own products, or designing a prototype in a few hours that you can present to a product person at an enterprise. Now, where to get started? I would say YouTube. There's some great resources on YouTube, and I'll drop some links to those in the comments when I reshare this, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's some fluff on YouTube you got to avoid, but there's also
Yeah.
some really good material out there where it's like, how to integrate with Stripe and Claude Code, or how to push a file to GitHub, right? GitHub 101 stuff. So I think starting there is the most important thing. And then getting familiar with using these tools in tandem, right? Like using the long context window in ChatGPT, using Claude Desktop for your technical requirements. Um, I think that's a good place to start. Yeah, and if you're familiar with Figma, use Figma. Try to design like 3 or 4 screens. Use that, screenshot that, have Claude Desktop build it's all about exploring and
Yeah.
exploration, right? And seeing kind of what works. I don't think my process, the way of building things, is the end all be all. I think it's just what works for me. I've been able to deploy products relatively quickly with the process that I am familiar with, but that might not work for everybody. So
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I'd add just don't fall in love with the tool, because outside of Figma, you really have to be open to every other tool, right? Because
mhm.
OpenAI is now losing to Anthropic with Claude Code, and Gemini for their 3.0 models. And it's like last, 2 weeks ago, everyone was in OpenAI. So just keep that open mindset around these tools.
For sure. Yeah. Another great tool is Google Studio, right? I think it uses Gemini, and it's actually cool. I was using it, I think, a week or two ago. And when you ask it, let's say you want to build like a simple AI app, it'll already integrate Gemini 3's model into the product you ask it to build. So you don't have to worry about grabbing API keys from OpenAI and putting those into your IDE and asking Cursor to implement those in like a .env file, right? It already does that. So I think we're seeing these tools move towards that, right? Where it's like, hey, if I just ask the tool to integrate Stripe, like here's your project ID in Stripe, and like maybe it just starts integrates it, right? So I think the less clicks thing is coming, but it's like I said, it's not quite there yet, right? With where we're at, you still
Yeah.
have to kind of orchestrate these tools. But to your point, I agree with Figma, right? I definitely see a place for Figma in the enterprise. Now, when it comes to like really smaller startups, I think that stuff will be consolidated to like 1 or 2 people, and I don't know where Figma lies in those teams
That's
anymore, right?
true. That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like Salesforce. Like it's hard to get
Yeah.
out of that tool, but then I talk to these startups and they're like, there's no way we have our own CRM that we built with AI, right? So like
Yeah.
startup size, you don't need these enterprise tools anymore. You can just
Sure. And they're
buy
expensive
your
in the
own.
enterprise too. Really
Exactly.
expensive. Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
So that's, I think, like startups, like, I do think we'll see in the next year, maybe two, you'll see billion-dollar companies be built by one person. I genuinely believe that. I do. I
Yeah.
think there'll be billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar companies that are built by one person in a month, less than that, right? I think, again, the way that we're seeing the development of software is changing, and I think historically people are used to this like one way of like building software, because that's the way we've done it forever, right? Is like, you
Yeah.
have a business leader distills some requirements or business requirements to a PM, and the PM distills that down into engineering requirements, and then maybe the designer will have a say in it, maybe not. The designer will go off and design something, hand it off to the engineer, and that's just the way we're used to working. But I think now with these tools, we're seeing a shift, and I don't necessarily know if like everybody sees that. And now it's not to say that like AI is going to come in and take everybody's job, which eventually it might, and I do think eventually it will. I don't think we're there yet, but I do think these tools are gonna the way that we use them is gonna change the way that we ship products. So yeah, I think just designers in general can heed that call and just pick up these tools, right, and start using them.
Absolutely. Yeah. If they're not already, they got to. And when you create the billion-dollar single person company, don't forget about us, the small people. All
Yeah,
right.
that's right. Yeah, it's
JC,
coming.
thanks. Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much for joining the show today. Where can people go to follow what you're talking about?
Yeah, hacker.dev on X, and on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, just John Carter on LinkedIn. Instagram, the real underscore John Carter. I'm on there too. I like to post work stuff on there as well. So check me
Oh
out all
yeah.
over the place. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again,
Cool,
man.
Alex. Yeah. Thanks again, man. Appreciate you.